Tell us about our position today and then what is our long-term vision when we compare against the best global centers around the world.
To start with, I should say that whenever I speak about the IFSC, I'm quite excited because there's not a single day that passes where we attempt or even come out with something completely new. But the proof, as my chairperson always keeps telling us, is the proof always lies in the eating, right? Proof of the pudding. And ultimately, as far as the pudding here is concerned, the eating is concerned, it always lies in statistics.
Welcome to the podcast Navigate with HSBC NRI Banking. Today we will be joined with an absolutely expert. But before that, a little bit about HSBC. HSBC has been in India for over 170 years. Through those 170 years, we've been a part of India's growth. We serve residents, NRIs, corporations, and these people, companies, have been propelling the India story forward. NRIs send back over $130 billion of money back home to India. But Indians are getting more and more global. They send over $30 billion of money around the world. Sometimes these funds accessed through global financial services centers. But what if India had its very own financial services center where you could access global opportunities sitting right here in India? But guess what? We already have that center at GIFT City, at the International Financial Services Center, IFSCA, and today we will be delighted to be joined by Mr. Pradeep Ramakrishnan, Executive Director of IFSCA. Welcome and delighted to have you here today, Pradeep. Whenever I think of IFSCA at GIFT City, I think of a premier global financial center. Tell us about our position today and then what is our long-term vision when we compare against the best global centers around the world.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. To start with, I should say that whenever I speak about the IFSC, I'm quite excited because there's not a single day that passes where we attempt or even come out with something completely new. But the proof, as my chairperson always keeps telling us, is the proof always lies in the eating, right? Proof of the pudding. So, and ultimately, as far as the pudding here is concerned, the eating is concerned, it always lies in statistics, right? So when it comes to banks, we have almost 35 banks here, and there are more foreign banks than Indian banks, and the business is actually shot up almost close to 90-100 million dollars. And very interestingly, we are the only jurisdiction in the world which mandates lending by these banks towards sustainable finance. So 5% of lending is actually towards sustainable finance. The fund ecosystem has rocketed. Almost 270 odd funds with almost 180 fund managers have come, and fund management thing is probably the vertical with the most amount of innovations and changes which keep coming. So that is one thing which started, and we have the capital market ecosystem. We have had a super bond ecosystem with almost 80 billion worth of bonds being raised by almost 150, 160 issuers. And interestingly, we have been quite a successful sustainable finance ecosystem also because we want to be a climate finance hub, and almost $16 billion worth of funds only for ESG has been raised out of this place, and it includes social, sustainability linked bonds also. And our bullion ecosystem is also almost 100 tons of gold have been imported through this ecosystem through the IIBX, the Indian International Bullion Exchange that was set up by the Prime Minister in July 22. And interestingly, we are a regulator with multiple verticals. So we also have a reinsurance vertical, so an insurance vertical where reinsurance business is actually taken off. And we also have a vertical like pensions, which is about to take off because some changes are expected in the the budget and the tax related portions. Very interestingly, for example, if you take something as niche as airplane leasing, if you look at India, India is probably one country where aviation sector is actually being growing, right? And we are envy of the world, the envy of the world as far as that is concerned. But when it comes to Air India and Indigo, they are actually leasing planes out of Dublin or other international jurisdictions. So we have tried to bring them here, right, to our jurisdiction. So that is also being successful. Ship leasing is another vertical. We have very niche sectors like foreign universities. You'll be surprised to know that there are 4 foreign universities which have already set up, and they are also offering courses internationally which are available here at almost half the price, and it's open for Indians and international students to actually take off to study and probably get benefited. And we also have a very good GCC ecosystem. The who's who of Bangalore actually is in GIFT City. They have set up their offices also there, with almost each of them having 400 to 600 persons each. So if you look at it as an ecosystem, because if you look at any international finance center, whenever we speak about international finance centers, we talk about a Singapore or a London, and the reason why we speak about them is the fact that they are all self-sufficient. Everything is available there. So, for example, if you take the capital market ecosystem, we began by bringing in issuers, we bring in arrangers, merchant bankers, credit rating agencies, then you have depository participants, then you have registrars. So once you create this ecosystem, the ecosystem starts to bloom. So that way, if you look at it, the IFSC is probably one of the exciting places to work today, because of the fact that it has been able to add so much value. And also the fact that if you just go back to the why the IFSC was set up, there were three primary goals. One is onshoring the offshore, bring this business back. Second is be a hub for capital and global finance. The third one, be a hub for innovation. So we have tried to keep all these three goals in mind while we have tried to expand.
No, this is wonderful. And so, as you know, HSBC has been in India for 170 years,
Yes.
right? And in GIFT only for 4 years, right? Among the first few banks to have fully set
Yes.
up. But amazingly, our GIFT ecosystem is already very large. We are present as a bank financing companies. You spoke about some aircraft leasing deals. We are opening multi-currency bank accounts for individuals. We're offering a range of fund advice.
Yeah.
And clearly so much to go. Our affiliate joint venture, Canada HSBC, just started an insurance business offering insurance in dollars to individual clients. So a lot.
Yeah, we also have an investment banking license.
And we have an investment banking license, among the first investment banking license for any bank, right? So from the first ATM bringing to India and now kind of working with you at GIFT City, I think we've been privileged to be a part of this journey. I think tell us about some product innovations. You already did refer to some of them, but any others you want to speak about, or regulatory enablers that you're prioritizing from a global HNI family office or institutional investors into GIFT City, right? Because also individuals are increasingly interested in accessing that, and how are you thinking about it?
See, for any regulator, like very recently, our chairperson has been repeatedly speaking at various seminars and public conferences, has been insisting upon these 2-3 things. One is, and particularly today's day and age, the way business is being done, you will not be able to attract business unless you actually have proper ease of doing business. And ease of doing business should not be on paper, it should be in spirit. So that is one thing which we ensure that we keep in mind. So that becomes easy for us. So when you look at, for example, when you take the fund management industry alone, because we are talking about wealth and HNIs. So we found that, of course, we have permissions for AIFs, we have permissions for mutual funds to set up and, of course, invest into India, invest out, inbound, outbound, all those things. Anyway, it is there in the regulations. But when someone comes to me and asks, okay, what is something innovative that you have done? So we have done something very interesting, very recently. One was something what we call as the platform play, right? Where we allowed a fund to manage third-party funds. Okay, so there will be a separate vehicle only for this, and it can be set up and it can be managed. And for that, the burden is very less. You don't need to have a CO. You do not have meet other criteria like net worth, setting up, and all that. So that is one thing which we have tried to bring very recently. The other one is co-investment. So through SPVs, through special purpose vehicles, we can actually do co-investment. That was also something innovative that we have brought. So these are two things which readily come to my mind when it comes to the fund management and wealth. But 2-3 things which a regulator has to keep in mind is, one is you have to cut red tape. You have to ensure that it is easy. So towards that, we have something called the SWIT portal, the single window IT system. So when it comes to any intermediary or any fund which wants to take a license, we have sort of leverage technology whereby you can just submit an application and even your no objection certificates from other regulators get uploaded there. So it actually cuts time. So even there were international regulators who came and visited GIFT, and particularly the IFSCA, and they were actually astonished with the time that we took to actually clear a fund, right? For example, we have first of all created something called a green channel, where in case of AIFs, in case of retail, non-retail funds, So you just file the PPM and go ahead. You don't wait for any approval from us. You just go ahead. So the approval or the observations which you talk about, they come only up for retail funds, which we sort of have done. So we are trying to innovate and we are trying to leverage. We're cutting down procedural delays wherever there are possible, because we keep learning. For example, if you take the new fund management regulations 2025, they are vastly different from what was the fund management regulations 2022. And I was completely astonished. I thought the work was over after we brought in the new fund management regulations 2025. Interestingly, within just 2-3 weeks, people started coming to us saying that, okay, this could have been done, that could have been done. So you will be very interested to know that we are trying to come out with one more consultation paper. We are trying to sort of consult the industry once again on what more that you want to do. And particularly in today's day and age, the amount of dynamism which is there in the industry internationally, it requires the regulator to be constantly evolving to suit those needs. So we are trying our best to do it. We also have a concept of a regulatory and innovation sandbox, where if there are any innovative ideas that can be first tested in the innovation sandbox and then passed on to the regulatory sandbox, and then we try to come out with thing. One thing which I think probably I will add in the end is tokenization. Now, tokenization, we have brought out a consultation paper. A lot of people are interested in that in that concept. So and regulators are still wrapping their heads around it on how to do it. Singapore and Hong Kong have tried to come out with some rules and regulations, but at the IOSCO meetings they were still skeptical on how further they want to go about it. So we will also be coming out with some rules and regulations, particularly for financial products, maybe to start with. So these are all some innovations which are happening as we speak. And the last one is, yesterday we have released the framework for the new global access. Now, Indians can invest abroad through the IFSC. They can invest through their LRS money, through the brokers who are here in various stock exchanges, the products which are available in various stock exchanges, financial products. And if they invest through the stock exchange subsidiaries, they can even invest in international mutual funds, which is available. So these are things, innovative things, which are happening as we speak.
Amazing. Sir, I was myself an NRI for 18 years. And before that, I was a resident Indian. And then I was a resident, but not ordinary resident. And then I'm back to being resident, ordinary resident again. And, the bank accounts you change, the status you change. Yeah. You move to different countries, you open investment accounts and close accounts. And I think GIFT really has the potential to be at one place where, whether you are an Indian, resident Indian, non-resident Indian, person of Indian origin, I think the 33 million diaspora and plus the Indians who have international interests, that could be one single account and one single investment account and potentially one single insurance, where you keep moving, but that's your rock which keeps you.
We are also doing, by the way, something for NRIs and Indians, particularly on the KYC thing, which you rightly said. I was just, it just struck me, so I thought probably I'll also add.
Yes.
We are trying to bring something on the video KYC, consultation papers are on them. So with that comes, then it actually open up. And for Indians, we are bringing a concept called the KRA, KYC Registration Agency. So your KYC need not be done repeatedly every time whenever you want to join an intermediary. So these are 2-3 other reforms in the pipeline which should
that'll be absolutely
also
wonderful,
delight,
right? And with video KYC, we can be anywhere around the world and then be able to deal with GIFT City. Right now, obviously, banks have a role to play, right? Both the international banks and the local private sector banks both have a role to play. So how do you, from your vantage point, right? The banks will do what they have to do, right? But from your vantage point, what do you see their role in deepening both private banking, wealth management activity within GIFT City?
See, of course, I don't handle the banking vertical, but I'll probably try to give a perspective from the point of view of the verticals which I handle. Sure. Now, for example, you take the bullion ecosystem, right? That is something which readily comes to my mind. So banks have always been traditionally participating in gold. They are the largest players in gold world over, right? In the bullion ecosystem, it is something which they can actually do. Recently, we had a meeting where the finance minister took stock, and there was one thing which she also had insisted was that the bank should participate. Right. So I believe the banks can actually make a complete difference to the bullion ecosystem if they participate. That is one thing which they can do. Secondly, a lot of innovation. One is sustainable finance. When it comes to lending and sustainable finance, 5% mandatory lending is something which is very interesting. We have also brought in the concept of short-term borrowing here very recently for CP and CDs, which can be done. So banks could actually leverage the capital market ecosystem for actually doing that. Now, otherwise, apart from that, not only banks, now we have the concept of finance companies and payment services providers. Sure. So we found that there are certain areas banks cannot venture because of the fact that many of them are also bound or tethered to their central banks, right? There are certain rules and regulations which tell them they can do this, they cannot do this, they cannot do that, right? So whereas a PSP or a finance company can actually probably not be tethered by that. So we have brought in an ecosystem of finance companies and PSPs who can also play a role when it comes to sending money and also receiving money through the IFSC.
Sure. I think you spoke about global access, but
Yeah.
also exchanges of exchanges, right? Buying stocks using GIFT City around the world, both Indian and for international clients. How do you see that growing and developing?
So just allow me to probably dwell on the capital market ecosystem for a minute or so. Then probably I will try to answer that question. See, when you look at the stock exchange ecosystem, we have two separate stock exchanges in the IFSC.
Yes.
You have the India INX and the NSE IX. You have two separate clearing corporations. The India INX one clearing corporation, and NSE IX also has a clearing corporation, and we have a separate bullion exchange which also has its own clearing corporation. So we are completely, it's completely ring fenced from what happens in the domestic jurisdiction. Everything is subject to the rules and regulations. We have a MII regulations. So the boost for the stock exchanges came from the Singapore Connect, the GIFT Connect, which was there. So the futures, Nifty futures, started getting traded through the National Stock Exchange, IX, International Exchange. Now, this has also opened uh, the window for the international investors to invest. Now, the stock exchange can also bring in certain investors, and that so the percentage of trading is almost 21, 22 to probably 70, 78. We expect this also to get balanced as we go ahead. Now, apart from that, the stock exchange also has the concept of single stock futures, right? It also has the concept of UDRs. These UDRs are on international stocks, which allow Indians to probably, buy a tokenized or a fractionalized possibility of an instrument. Maybe I can't buy an Nvidia or Nvidia or an Amazon, but I can probably buy a fractionalized instrument of that. So that is something which is there. 50 stocks are available today, and we have had many people taking advantage of it. Now, I am very happy to also, and of course, bond system, which I told you, the bonds are also
Yes,
listed.
yes.
Almost 150 issuers have listed bonds. I'm quite excited to tell you that we are going to we have already opened up the markets for equity listing in the stock exchanges in the IFSC. Now, when it comes to equity listing, Indian unlisted companies can list as of now. Indian listed companies, SEBI is working on certain rules and regulations for the secondary listing, and foreign companies can list. I'm very happy to tell you that we should be seeing the first listing very shortly,
Nice.
and that should actually open up the market for others. So that will ensure more people also playing in the equity segment, and this actually becomes self-sufficient. Because see, today if you look at it, the Nifty futures and there is also Sensex futures, the underlying stock ultimately is in India. So that is on which it's actually a derivative. So it is not an indigenous product by itself other than the bond ecosystem. So it's imperative that you have an equity ecosystem which is there in the GIFT IFSC. So that is something which we are happy about. It should take off very shortly. Coming to global access. Now, what exactly is global access? So Indians want to invest abroad. Indians want to look at various places to invest within the LRS limits which have been specified by the RBI. Now, it's important for them to act through someone who is regulated, right? Because I know that this person comes under a regulator. There are certain rules, regulations which they have to comply with, certain returns they have to file. They need to have a compliance officer or a principal officer, and they know that they are complying with certain rules and regulations. But instead of investing to this person, I should not be investing through some third party, right? And recently we also found that one large brokerage house in Dubai actually went bust and a lot of Indians lost money. So we have tried to create an ecosystem where people will get registered, intermediaries will get registered with us as brokers, and either operate through a foreign broker or operate through the subsidiaries of stock exchanges, both the stock exchanges there, which will get a truck with a foreign broker, and they can actually invest abroad. And these markets are not just limited to just the United States. Any FATF white jurisdiction, if you want to invest, you can actually invest. If you want to invest in Brazil, you can do that. You can invest in Singapore, you can do that. So which means that imagine the plethora of possibilities that actually await. So this framework was released yesterday, and we already have a lot of people queuing up for licenses. So I really hope that that is going to be a game changer as far as the IFSC ecosystem is concerned.
It's amazing to see how the capital market, and global access. And as a former NRI, right, I keep my eye around the world. But I remember, 1990 when I bought my first stock. You had to physically apply, and then a paper form would come in, and if you got a large envelope, that means the stock had been issued, and if you got a small one, it was a refund, and you normally wanted the issuance. But the world has moved so much that rather than waiting for one stock by one stock by one stock, soon
Yes.
that GIFT will be able to buy access exchanges from around the world, and there are opportunities around the world, and HSBC sometimes is able to connect and bring
Yeah.
research and bring access to what are the best ideas from around the world. Now, see, when people are investing overseas or in multi-currency, sometimes they're a little bit worried about tax, right? And I know this is a complex topic, and we have to have tax consultants often in the room when when we're talking about tax. But what are your views about making tax simple? And I know that that journey, GIFT has already traveled quite a lot of the journey, and IFSCA has traveled a lot of the journey. So would love your reflections on that.
So whenever we have visitors to GIFT, one standard question is always on tax. What can you do for us? And we have actually, like you very rightly said, we have moved quite far on that aspect. We have been able to sort of clear a lot of things, and the income tax department has been quite helpful. The government has been helpful, the ministry sitting with us and trying to understand as to what are probably the carve-outs which we have to sort of create for this jurisdiction, right? So that is something that's quite important for this jurisdiction to probably. So one very important thing about the GIFT is the fact that you have a 10-year tax holiday, right? Which so out of 10 out of 15 years, there is no tax. So that is something which a lot of people know about by now. And we are also trying to create tax parity. For example, if you invest in Mauritius, or probably if you're investing in some other jurisdiction, so if you're doing it through the GIFT, or if you're doing it directly, right? So then there needs to be tax parity and also reverse. So we are trying to do that. So every year we try to go to the taxman with almost 30 or 40 proposals.
Yes.
So when they look at us, they know that, okay, you have 30, 40, please tell me what are the most important ones. Let us look at that first. So that is how it has happened. So now the recently, if you see, the finance minister has announced that the new income tax bill will be has been passed yesterday. There has been introduced and passed. So we expect a separate chapter for IFSCA, which was has been told. So hopefully something on that also has to come, which will sort of streamline, and you know what exactly is there. But to be very fair, the government has been creating and carving out something or the other every time as far as tax is concerned, because it also has to look at 2 or 3 things. One main thing is the loss to the exchequer. So even if there is loss to the exchequer, if suppose it's going to add value to the business ecosystem, that also is something which they are sort of looking at. But we have traveled very far, like you very rightly said. There have been a lot of carve-outs, there have been many exemptions, and it continues, and it will continue to probably enrich this ecosystem.
I fully agree with you, and which is why what we've done is for our premier and for our private banking clients, we have made tax advisory with specialists a part of the proposition, so they can navigate with confidence, right? And obviously, thanks to you to continue to make this journey forward, right? And you spoke about onboarding, and you spoke about KYC a little bit, and how you're making KYC simpler. We've been opening individual accounts, and pleased to say that within one day we are typically able to open a GIFT City account. But from your standpoint, sir, what are you doing to simplify kind of both onboarding and the KYC experience for clients?
So that's it's a very important question, because ultimately the people who enrich the ecosystem are the investors, and we have to make their lives easy. So one thing is, in India, the KRA system, the KYC registration agency system, has been quite successful, which SEBI has brought. So we have tried to bring that model into the IFSC. So we are expecting to have the first KRA very shortly. The application will be filed very soon. So that will take care of the Indian ecosystem. There will be more people also who can take registration with us as KRAs. So this completely obviates the need for an investor to do and redo the KYC every time they invest in the GIFT IFSC ecosystem. Now, as far as the foreigners is concerned, which is where probably the issue arises. So one thing which has been a constant request has been a video KYC. Why should I come all the way here? So that is something which has been, particularly for persons of Indian origin or others. So on that, we have just recently released a paper. So we should be able to sort of come to an agreement with the FIU and on the AML CFT norms, because we have been quite high on the FATF ranking. They have actually ranked us to be one of the best ecosystems as far as FATF compliance is concerned, and we want to continue and maintain that, because when you take any international jurisdiction when it comes to tax, or I mean not when it comes to color of money,
Sure.
right? That is a question which is constantly asked. So that is why you go to tax haven and all that. So we don't want to be that. We are not a tax haven. We are not a place which is going to be light as far as the AML safety norms are concerned. But keeping that in mind, what we can do to onboard investors easily is something which we are working on. So the video KYC thing should actually be a game changer as far as the international investors are concerned.
No, fully agree. And having worked on video KYC extensively for our resident clients, I think it's the right thing to do. And the technology on video KYC has improved so much with IP and fraud controls that I think it might be fit for purpose already. How are you working with other regulators from around the world to just harmonize capital flows, make sure that compliance is also harmonized, and from an investor protection standpoint, you spoke about sometimes dubious players, particularly for residents who are accessing the IFSC markets?
So two things here. First of all, we are a member of the International Organization of Securities Commissions, IOSCO, and we have also signed. We are also signatories to the MMOU with them, which means that any information that we seek from any international regulator and what they seek from us, there is an exchange of information. We have been doing that regularly with so many international regulators. So whenever, for example, they want to onboard a fund, if they have something, they ask us and we respond. So this MMOU actually has helped us to clear applications fast, for them also to clear applications fast, because ultimately we are all part of the same ecosystem. Best practices have to be learned. Investor protection is actually high on the agenda of of many international organizations, particularly an organization like IOSCO, which gives out principles on all these things. When it comes to domestic regulators, IFSC is really thankful to all the domestic regulators, whether it is SEBI or RBI or even IRDA. We have actually taken a lot of best practices, and we should also thank our ministry, the Ministry of Finance, because they have been able to coordinate all the ministry, because we are also a member of the FSDC, the Financial Stability Development and Development Council, which in case there are issues, we always take up there and we try to iron out. But in fact, to be very fair, very few cases actually go there, because we've been able to iron out things with the regulators itself. So when it comes to creating new innovative products, bringing more customers, a lot of things requires us to actually speak to the domestic regulators, because there is money flow out of the country. Sometimes there are people who are investing technically in an international jurisdiction, or probably there is an outbound money which goes out. So to these things, we have been able to sort of solve the matters regularly with our domestic regulators, and they have been quite helpful.
Clearly, as you said, GIFT has seen a lot of interest from AIFs and private fund managers. What are your plans to attract even more fund managers to come into the system, right? Because we want this to be the absolutely best place for these opportunities.
No, very, very, very well. And I hope probably a year or two from now, I'll be sitting with you and probably speaking of record numbers.
Right.
We already have got good numbers, because when you compare to other ecosystems which have been in existence for decades, we have actually done quite well. And mainly because of one important reason. The fact is that we have had the Indian diaspora around the world. At one point in time, we are looking at our population as something which is negative, but today it's actually paying us demographic dividend. 1 in every 6 persons in the world is an Indian, and they have been able to sort of leverage that. But when it comes to the fund management ecosystem, as when we began this this talk, we were discussing about the fact as to how dynamic the international economy is, and the same impact is there on the fund management ecosystem. So as far as the fund management ecosystem is concerned, we are constantly looking out for innovation, making lives easy for people. So what we have tried to do, 2 recent innovations which I talked to you about earlier. One was a platform play innovation which came about. One was co-investment scheme. The other one which we tried to sort of bring through the SPV model. And there are other discussions which a lot of people have tried to sort of take it out with us. But when you look at the fund management regulations 2025 itself, it has been a marked improvement over what it was the fund management regulations 2022, where if you look at it, one of the biggest the evidence of the fact that it is a success is that India's domestic regulator, SEBI, which is one of the most respected regulators around the world, has actually taken some of the innovations that we have brought
Sure.
and tried to take it back to the Indian jurisdiction, which is an evidence of the fact that we have been doing something sort of right. Right. So, but what we have to always keep in mind that irrespective of what we try to do, the 2 or 3 important aspects as far as the color of money when it comes to AML, those things will always be there when it when we try to onboard investors. But one thing I can tell you is that our zeal for improvement, our zeal for innovation will never reduce, because any regulator who has to sort of proceed ahead, has to sort of make an jurisdiction vibrant, has to ensure that it cuts on procedural delays, reduces redundancies, and keeps its eyes open for innovation. Right. So these 3 things we are trying to keep in mind while we try to develop the ecosystems, including the fund management ecosystem.
So I must say that as a member of the banking community for the last 25 plus years and around many jurisdictions, your words are a breath of fresh air, right? I think bankers around the world would love to have regulators who are looking to the future and looking to make things easy. And you spoke about the diaspora. While many of them left the country, but their heart, a large part of the heart is always in India, which is why $130 billion of money always flows back to India every year. And about 30 billion of Indians who are in India, but their heart is fully global. They're able to think global. They send money overseas to either support their families, send kids overseas, or invest globally. And I think we're very well positioned at GIFT and at IFSC to offer both. Now, we thought about the past. We talked about 170 years. We thought about the GIFT. Let's think about the future, right? From next 5-10 years. If you want to imagine what trends would have changed, what would have grown, let's love to hear your views on what. How do you see it 5-10 years later?
Yeah, so we will continue to do what we have been doing all along, which is, see, I'll tell you what, some time ago there was a doubt on whether we will succeed. Now that doubts have actually gone. So now people are asking, where will you go, right? But what we want to do is that we, as I told you, we have these objectives of onshoring the offshore, which we are actually being quite successful. We want to make this as a very vibrant ecosystem for not just for India. Right? For we also want international players, particularly the global south, Africa, also to make use of this ecosystem. To actually, we want to look at want them to look at this ecosystem as an international ecosystem, right? And I'm sure we are actually making the right noises, because very recently a Sri Lankan bank has actually made its listing on the on the NSE-IX, and we recently had some other listing also, which was happening on the international exchange. So we, because one of the things which we told the world during our G20 presidency was the fact of channelizing this whole concept of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, right? The world is our family, and the whole thing about this whole G20 was not just take for also give it to the world, right? So, and if you want to give it to the world, why not make use of this ecosystem? This G20, what the G20 tried to do when India's presidency was on, was try to tell the world that we can actually share wealth, we can actually do things mutually. COVID, for example, when COVID came, India became a country which actually supplied medicines around the world, vaccines around the world. So why can't we do that? So we showed that we are capable. But what we want to do from this ecosystem is that we want to make this quite an attractive jurisdiction for Indians come back to India. Because, for example, you take something like sustainable finance, right? India needs $10 to $15 trillion to achieve its net zero needs, right? This IFSC ecosystem is probably one ecosystem through which you can actually channelize funds. We actually shown that we can succeed, on that front. So we can actually do that, and we can also, for example, you can even create a fund. The government can create a fund, for example, a sovereign fund, which actually borrows money internationally or even from Indians, and probably, helps this smaller countries or probably poorer countries. Because one of the things which was agreed in the recent COP was to help the smaller countries, right? And India has always showed that it can do that. So I see a plethora of possibilities as far as this IFSC is concerned, and not just limiting to what we can do for India, but also what we can give to the world.
And yeah, fully echo that, sir. So we spoke about the diaspora, we spoke about resident Indians, but I think I dream of a world where people from around the world, the person could be in country A investing in country B, but the place of doing that business is IFSC and its GIFT City. So look forward to seeing that day in the near future. Thank you, Pradeep, for joining us today. Thank you for your insights. For everybody who joined in today, we're confident that as GIFT City rises, so do the opportunities for all participants, for Indians here in India and around the world. I am confident that this is an early stage of the journey, and soon and over the years, we will see GIFT City rise to new heights. So let's stay tuned in. Let's also stay tuned in for other podcasts which will bring to you equally insightful and on this topic and other topics. So thank you once again, Pradeep, for joining us today.
Thank you.